Think about it. When you feel fear, the significant thing that it's telling you is you're thinking of something that your inner being isn't thinking of. Because if your inner being agreed with you, you'd be feeling elation. We really don't think it would be a good idea for you to fill your hands with Novocaine so that you could just lay them on the hot stove. I feel no more pain. It's so much better now that I have numb hands. Very odd smell, however. It's good that you have awareness that you are focused in a way that is not good for you, yes? So don't move through fear. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge it. Take the bounce. In other words, because when you're feeling strong fear, you really, really know what you do not want. So you're really, really specifically focused upon what you don't want, which means you're launching really specific rockets of desire about what you do want. And your fear is just telling you, hey, you've launched the rockets, you've done the work, you've taken the expansion. The larger part of you is expanded and taking the expansion and loving the expansion. But you right now, because of what you're focused upon, are an uncooperative component, and you're feeling the discord of that, period. Jerry had a experience a long time ago. He was working on a television show, and the wrangler was going to assign him a horse. And so there was a horse that was just really skittish and anxious and strong and moving its head. And the wrangler said, here's your horse. And Jerry said, that's not a good pick for me because I'm delivering lines. I don't think that horse is going to be cooperative. I'd like a kinder, gentler horse. And the wrangler said, you're just afraid of that horse. And Jerry said, no, I'm not really afraid of it. He was very afraid of it. No, I'm not afraid of it. I just don't want that horse. So the wrangler jumped on the horse. The horse reared its head back and knocked out the man's teeth. Because he had moved through his fear. In other words, he had no sensitivity to the relationship with the horse that he just had. He was accustomed to doing things because that's the way he did things. Jerry's sensitivity kept his teeth in his head. So whenever someone says, I want to move through fear, we say, no, you don't. You want to focus on things so that the fear dissipates. You want to bring yourself in alignment with the well-being that is natural. But we don't want you to regard your negative emotions as something unwanted. We want you to regard them as guidance that assists you in releasing the thoughts that aren't helpful and discovering the thoughts that are. You mean that kind of well-being really does abound? You mean that I am that blessed and that worthy, and I have a guidance within me that is strong enough that will show me? Practice it. Find somebody who's really given you a hard time and focus upon the injustice that they've offered and feel how awful it feels. Bring yourself to a place of really not liking someone. Really resent them and really beat the drum of it and feel how you feel. And recognize that all you're doing is choosing a stance that the source within you, that your inner being, that the larger part of you will not choose no matter what. Because no matter how much reality you're facing, your inner being will not leave the vortex and commiserate with you. And that's why you have negative emotion. And the stronger the negative emotion, that's the indication the more that there's something on the flip side of it that you really, really want, you see. And as we said earlier, you can't necessarily really know what you don't want and then instantaneously really know what you do want, but you can distract yourself. So it's better, rather than hitting it head on, to change the subject, to get off the subject that is agitating you or off the subject to which you are feeling so much fear, and try to find something that you feel better about. Often, when you really don't feel good, the best thing to do is to meditate or to take a nap or to do something to break the evil spell of the point of attraction just a little bit. We're kidding you about the evil spell thing, you know, but to break the point of attraction. So this is the point of what we've been talking about today. You've heard it all day long from us, is that it's far more productive and far easier for you to find yourself in the vicinity of the vortex and then milk that a little bit than to go from a fearful place and try to move into the vortex, because what you've got going on vibrationally is just going to reflect more back to you. If you're in a place where you're really feeling fear and someone says push through it, maybe what they mean is just hang on, because you cannot maintain that level of fear for a very long time because you're going to be distracted with life, you're going to be distracted with sleep. In other words, this too shall pass. And if you're aware that it will pass and you're looking for opportunities for it to pass and you're finding other moments that feel better, we promise you, when you find yourself in the vicinity or in the vortex, that's when you want to do the work. So the way you release fear from your experience is by replacing it with confidence and certainty. The easiest way to release fear from your experience is to find something to love, something easy to love, and focus upon the fact that you love it and how much you love it. It really is about the amount of airtime that you've been giving to things. But you have been living under a misconception, as have most people on the planet. Most people think that stuff just happens, and when bad stuff happens, and you look at it, and you have to, that you're going to feel fear, and that there's not anything that you can do about it. And we want to say, even under the most fearful of conditions, you don't have to feel fear because you have the ability to change the subject. So why wouldn't anyone? This is a big question that we want you to consider about yourself. Why wouldn't anyone be willing to change the subject from a fearful one to a joyful one? Why would you not be willing to do that? Because you don't believe in the vortex? Because you believe in reality? In other words, the only reason that anyone would not be willing to do that is because they really don't get the vortex, they really don't get attraction, they really don't get vibration, they really don't yet understand that manifestations will follow your point of attraction, and your point of attraction is evidenced to you by the way you feel, and you can choose to feel good no matter what, once you understand this, you see. So when you say, how can I push through fear? We say, we wouldn't. We just try to find little pieces of something that feel entirely different than fear, and we would practice them until they're so active in our vibration that even scary things don't scare you. It's so interesting. You can reach the place where someone will say something to you that has the potential of frightening you, and you don't feel fear because your understanding of well-being is so in place within you that you know how illogical that fear is. We're eager to talk with you about anything that is important to you. There is nothing off limits. We want you to know that whether you are called forward to the hot seat where we will dialogue with you personally, or whether you are sitting out there just having your vibrational moment, that you will hear, to the degree that you are in relationship to your vortex, everything that we know about that. This gathering has assembled before you dragged your physical bodies here or before you logged in online. In other words, there are thousands of us participating here in physical form, and we cannot even begin to give you the numbers of non-physical energy that is participating with you here. We want you to know that this cooperative experience of co-creation at its best will reveal to you a number of things. First, it's going to show you firsthand your relationship with the vortex. You're going to have an experience sitting wherever you're sitting on the planet where something that is important to you is going to be discussed in a way and in a fullness that you will understand it completely. And you got to know it's your manifestation. In other words, what's happening here in this gathering is your manifestation. It's not being orchestrated because we know stuff, we do, that we think you would like to know, we do. It's that you are summoning, and to the degree that you are in relationship with your vortex, you're going to receive clarity, full understanding of all kinds of wonderful things. Barbara and Esther flew back from Stanford, Connecticut, and their flight was late leaving, and so they missed their connection. And Esther said, well, in the spirit of everything is always working out for us, this one's hard to figure out, because I would have thought if things were really working out for us, we would have made that connection. And then she thought, well, I'm still going to hold to the idea that things are always working out for us. And then they began playing with everyone in the airport who would play with them. The red coat is telling them you're on time out because they were having such a good time. And then they got on a flight flying into San Antonio with a flight attendant who was, without question, the most remarkable and funny, not just funny, hilarious, not just hilarious, fall down and die funny, that they had ever met. The flight wasn't full. They were in the first class cabin. They had most of it to themselves, just a few random strangers who were not having anything to do with Peggy because Peggy was just too silly for most people. But she was not too silly for Barbara and Esther, and she proceeded to entertain them in ways that we cannot even begin to explain to you. Until for the 3-hour flight, Esther and Barbara laughed nonstop until they were hurting. And even people who were having none of Peggy are now laughing because they are egging her on. Esther said, I would have missed 15 flights to rendezvous with this comedian. So now Peggy is telling them everything about every passenger on the airplane, which is completely unprofessional, but really, really funny. And there's a man back there who really needs to have an air marshal come and take him off the plane. But Peggy doesn't like the inconvenience of that. And she's pretty sure that that kind of language doesn't rise to the level of returning to Atlanta. And Esther and Barbara are agreeing with her. And so she's just reporting in on what's going on. Esther offered to go back and sit with the man if it would help, but it turned out it was not necessary. And then Peggy is referring to the old people over there and the old people over there and the old people over there. And Esther said, you might kind of want to stop that because that's going to come back and bite you in the butt one day because we're all moving through time. And then Peggy was having such a good time entertaining all of them that she forgot to give the in-flight announcements. And so Esther said, please bring your tray tables and seats to the upright position. And a man who was not having anything to do with Peggy said to her, you might want to take your seat. And she said, do you see treetops? And he said, yes, I do. And then Peggy realized that not only had she not given any of the announcements, her kitchen was still all open. So she is closing doors. Oh shit, 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 oh shit. And then Barbara and Esther see her fly across the walkway and into her seat just as the plane lands. And Esther said, here's my card, Peggy. Call me when they fire you, and they will fire you. Because there was an airline captain sitting on the front row, pretending to be asleep, but taking all of it in. And Barbara and Esther felt utterly responsible because they had evoked every bit of every bit of every bit of every bit. Peggy said, they keep drug testing me. I don't know why. And Esther said, I think that cucumber and tomato diet you're on is fermenting in your stomach and turning to alcohol or something. It could be something like that. So, would you have wanted to miss something like that? Wouldn't you have been willing to roam around the Atlanta airport for an extra hour so that you could rendezvous with something that you will never forget as long as you live, that will be a source of vortex entry and hanging in there? Esther has entertained herself with that hours on end, not wanting to forget one precious morsel of information that Peggy delivered to them in her innocence, in her certifiable innocence, in her willingness to play with passengers in an environment where you usually don't get that much fun from flight attendants. So we're just saying that if you begin to watch for the manifestations that are occurring, Esther and Barbara know we could not have been in a better place because you can't have that kind of experience if you're not in a really good place. And there are many who would say, but Abraham, I thought we were creating empires. I thought we were creating movements. I thought we were creating big things. I thought we were creating more important things. And we say, nothing is more important than the manifested reflection of the genius and the power and the clarity and the love of who you are. In other words, manifestation right now, right now, right now, right now, right now. Reflecting back what? Reflecting back your relationship with who you really are and nothing more. So when you get it, that you have control over your relationship with the vortex, then you get it that you have control over everything. The cells of your body, your economic relationship with economy, your relationship with everyone, your relationship with everyone and everything, every manifestation, large or small. And we want to say there aren't large or small ones. There's just now. giving you feedback, now, giving you feedback, now, giving you feedback.